Welcome to today's deep dive. We're really thrilled you're joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
So today we are opening a single, radically mind-bending source. It's a text titled "Superpowered Me, the Goddess."
It's a wild
It
read.
really is. I mean, usually when we talk about the divine, we look up at the clouds for some sort of deity.
Or we walk into a stone temple.
Right. We point to a specific ancient book on a pedestal. We
Yeah.
expect the sacred to have like a geography.
For a place we can visit.
Exactly. A place that keeps it neatly separated from our ordinary everyday lives.
Ugh.
But the text we are unpacking today completely obliterates that boundary.
It really doesn't hold back.
No, it opens with a claim that just grabs you by the collar. It literally says, before you ask who I am, I'm already answering.
Which is such a striking way to start.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to explore the text's central provocative argument that the divine is not a personified ruler in the sky, but the very awareness making it possible for you, the listener, to hear these words right now.
Yeah, it is an incredibly ambitious framework. And to help you synthesize these massive ideas, I'll be mapping out the what, the where, and the why of this concept as we go.
Perfect. So let's start with the what. What exactly is the goddess in the context of this source?
Well, the source explicitly strips away the standard mythology. It argues that she is not a character in a story, nor a ruler, nor a deity separate from the material world.
Right.
Instead, the text refers to her as the original fact. She is the capacity for experience.
The capacity,
Yeah,
not the content.
exactly. Not the content of an experience like what you had for breakfast or a conversation you had yesterday, but the actual experiencing itself.
And the text references several historical names from ancient traditions to ground this. Right?
Yeah, quite a few. It mentions Shakti in the Hindu tradition, Sophia in Gnosticism, Asherah in the ancient Near East.
Inanna, Isis, Tiamat, Gaia.
Right, all of those. But the source is really careful to clarify that it isn't talking about different personalities or, competing regional deities.
So it's not like a pantheon of different characters.
No, the argument here is that these names are all pointing to the exact same underlying reality. It's the living fabric of the world, aware of itself.
Which is a huge paradox when you think about it.
It is a profound paradox. The text describes this fundamental awareness as the infinite, formless ground of being.
Which is what the Vedic traditions would call Brahman, right?
Yes, exactly. And to understand Brahman, those traditions use a process called neti-neti.
Which means, like, not this, not that.
Right. It's a mechanism of elimination. So you look at your thoughts and say, I'm aware of my thoughts, therefore I am not my thoughts.
Oh, I see.
You look at your body and say, I'm aware of my body, therefore I am not my body. You strip away every single thing that can be observed until all that is left is the silent, invisible observer.
But the text argues this infinite, formless observer is also somehow the most intimate personal sensation of just being alive.
Closer than your own breath, as they say.
I was trying to think of an analogy for this to help, grasp such an abstract concept.
I'd love to hear it.
Think about the literal screen in a movie theater. Like, right now, you, the listener, you are likely completely focused on the sound of our voices, the concepts we're discussing, maybe a notification that just popped up on your screen.
The content of the moment.
Right, the content. And the text argues we spend our entire lives obsessed with the drama of the movie, the romance, the explosions, the plot twists.
And we completely ignore the blank screen itself.
Exactly. Without that blank screen, there is no projection. The screen holds everything. It allows the entire experience to exist, but it never actually takes on the properties of any specific character in the film.
That is a fantastic analogy, and it translates perfectly to how the text redefines the relationship between the masculine and feminine principles.
Because normally we see those framed as opposites, right? Like a tug of war.
Yeah, two opposites fighting for dominance in culture or psychology or relationships, but the source entirely rejects that friction.
They aren't at war.
No, it frames them as two necessary movements within a single reality, like breathing in and out, or, silence and sound. The text highlights this assertion. Shiva cannot dance without Shakti.
Wow. Meaning the masculine principle, the form, the action, the movie playing, arises entirely within the ground of the feminine principle.
Which is the space, the silence, the screen.
The word cannot be spoken without the silence that holds it.
Exactly. They are completely codependent.
Okay, so if this fundamental awareness, this silent screen, is the ground of absolutely everything, How did humanity lose track of it?
Well, that leads directly into the text's historical argument, and it asserts that this wasn't just a passive
It
forgetting.
wasn't an accident.
No, the source claims it was an active, deliberate erasure of the feminine divine.
What's fascinating here is, wait, sorry, I mean, that's your catchphrase, but I'll let you explain.
Huh. Well, what's fascinating here is the sharp distinction the text makes between absence and erasure.
Because absence is neutral.
Right. Absence just means something isn't there, but erasure is intentional. It takes effort, and it leaves a permanent wound in the cultural psyche.
And the text argues this suppression was used by emerging power structures to centralize authority. Let's look at the specific historical examples they give.
They start with the Canaanite goddess Ashra
Right, who appeared in early Hebrew texts.
as a divine partner, actually. But the source says she wasn't just forgotten. She was systematically scrubbed from the texts and temples over 7 centuries of reform.
Because they needed a centralized patriarchal monotheism.
Exactly, a system that couldn't tolerate a dual or immanent divine presence.
And we see the same thing with the Gnostics, right?
Yeah, the Gnostic traditions preserved the concept of Sophia.
It's a feminine divine wisdom.
And Sophia wasn't just, like, a metaphor for being smart. She was the generative, animating intelligence of the universe.
But the Central Church branded those traditions as heretical.
To consolidate theological power, yes.
Yes.
The texts were hunted down and destroyed.
Forced completely out of the mainstream conversation. The source also brings in Maria Gimbutas, the archaeologist who studied the goddess cultures of old Europe.
Yeah, she documented these incredibly rich, peaceful, agrarian societies.
But her findings were totally diminished by later historians.
They were. The text argues they were intentionally dismissed as just primitive fertility worship.
Which completely undermines the complexity of it.
Right. By labeling it fertility worship, they relegated the feminine divine to mere biology and superstition. It propped up this narrative that true civilization only began when sky gods and patriarchal hierarchies arrived to build empires.
And the text argues this erasure had a massive cost. It severed humanity from its own ground.
Yes. The text imparts that when you erase the goddess, you create a civilization that builds, conquers, and extracts, but it doesn't know what it is moving within.
A wound to reality's self-knowledge.
Exactly.
So if she was erased from official records, from the temples and the texts, where did she go? Did she just disappear?
Well, the text argues that because she is the fundamental ground of reality, she couldn't actually be destroyed. So she moved underground.
Underground into, like, nature and folk traditions.
And most importantly, into the human body.
Which makes sense. There's that deep connection between the feminine divine and physical matter. The text points out that the Latin word for matter is mater, which literally translates to mother.
Right. So in this framework, to honor the body, to honor matter, is to literally honor the mother. It's not a poetic metaphor for the author. It's a literal reality.
And the goddess survived in these really interesting, quiet ways, like the unexplainable love for the Virgin Mary.
Or in the practical knowledge of midwives and traditional healers.
And keepers of seeds.
Mm.
But it gets even more specific about modern biology.
Oh, it goes deep into the physiology. It posits that the human nervous system is an instrument of divine perception.
Specifically the gut, right? Which science calls the second brain.
Yeah, the text describes the gut as the goddess's most immediate, unfiltered voice.
So when you feel that sudden drop of dread, or a wave of profound peace in your stomach,
The text argues that isn't just a chemical reaction to stimuli. It's the foundational intelligence of the universe communicating directly through your body.
and it also highlights the menstrual cycle and lunar cycles as literal sacraments.
Sacraments of creative and destructive renewal.
Okay, I have to push back a little here with a modern observation.
Go for it.
In our current culture, we often treat our bodies as machines to be hacked or optimized for better productivity, right? We track our sleep, we biohack our diets. How does this text challenge that specific mindset?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text counters that optimization mindset by looking at the concept of Maya.
Maya, which is usually translated as illusion.
Right, a negative illusion or a trap to escape. But the source emphasizes that Maya actually means to veil.
To veil. So it's not a trap.
No, it's the goddess playing. The body isn't a trap to transcend, and it certainly isn't a machine to optimize.
It's a game of hide and seek.
Exactly. The text argues the body is the exact place where the infinite divine veiled itself, made itself localized, just to experience the astonishment of waking up and recognizing itself again.
So every time we feel genuine awe or deep connection.
That's the divine recognizing itself through human eyes, and treating the body as an expendable resource just mirrors how we treat the earth.
Wow. Okay, so if the body is the ultimate temple, then living in alignment with it must unlock something profound. This brings us to the title of the piece, Superpowered Me.
Right, but we need to define what superpowered actually means here.
Yeah, it's not about shooting lasers or magical abilities bestowed from above.
Definitely not. It defines a superpower as the natural functioning of an undivided consciousness. The text calls this divine integrity.
Divine integrity, being completely undivided, no gap between what you are and how you act.
Exactly. No friction between your innermost knowing and your outermost expression.
Which means letting go of the contracted self.
Yes, the exhaustion of the contracted self. That's the culturally programmed version of us that constantly apologizes for taking up space.
The version that edits its personality to be acceptable.
Right. And to dissolve that, the text uses the first-person I throughout the manifesto. It points to the Sanskrit phrase, tat famasi.
Meaning, I am that.
Yes. It dissolves the small ego into the larger reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because things like intuition or having a healing presence, they aren't supernatural miracles in this framework.
No, they're just natural.
The text offers this great analogy. A river allowed to flow isn't performing a miracle. It's just being a river. The superpower is simply stopping the fight against your own nature.
And that is so important to ground in the modern day, because the source argues we are living in the direct consequences of the goddess's absence.
The epidemic loneliness.
Moving faster and faster without knowing why.
Mistaking measurable outputs for actual wisdom.
Exactly. So reclaiming this undivided state isn't just some academic nostalgia, it's medicine for a collective wound.
So what does this all mean? We started by breaking down the traditional view of a personified deity in the clouds.
Right.
Then we explored the painful history of how that feminine ground of reality was erased to consolidate power. And finally, we landed squarely back in your own body, in your own nervous system, and undivided self.
It's a massive journey. And there's one final crucial caveat the text leaves us with about recognition versus belief.
Oh, yeah. The text explicitly asks the reader not to just believe it.
Because belief is thin. It lives in the analytical mind, and the mind changes its beliefs all the time.
So it asks for recognition instead.
Right. Recognition is a settling in the body. It's like suddenly recognizing your own face in a mirror. You don't debate it, you just know.
So as you go about your day, we want to leave you with a final question to mull over on your own.
That's a powerful one.
Where in your own life are you currently exhausted by performing a contracted self? And what would happen if you dared to view your own quiet intuition, not as a random thought, but as the foundational intelligence of the universe speaking directly through you?
A really profound thought to end on.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.